Good morning, welcome back to day 4 of this FEI Para-Dressage European Championships. And we have the final day of this team competition that is really starting to heat up. Yesterday we had the grades 1, 2 and 3 compete, and today the remaining two classes, grade 4 and 5. Grade 5 going first this morning. And riders riding this Grand Prix B test today, so this is also the second part of their individual qualification through to the freestyle on Saturday. But the main competition is this team competition. 13 teams coming forward for this team competition, and we have one qualification slot up for grabs. 9 riders to go from grade 5 in this first group. And Great Britain, Netherlands, Denmark, Germany, Italy and Belgium all having qualified from the World Championships last year. So all to play for, but they will be riding for those podium spots as well. And things are getting very close. By the end of this grade 5, Germany, Ireland and Great Britain and Italy will all have completed their team scores and have a final score for us. But the first rider into the arena for this grade 5 will be the second rider for Denmark. Leen Thorning-Jorgensen. She rides the 8-year-old gelding Hogarden's Zaximo DWB. And Denmark, unfortunately, just down to 3 riders after their 4th rider, Nicole, had to pull out, withdrew her horse. She said not quite feeling right after that individual competition, so every score counting. So entering the arena, the first rider in this grade 5, representing Denmark, Leen Thorning-Jorgensen. And she finished in 11th place in the individual on a score of 70%. So if she can build on that score, she will hopefully be able to work towards that qualification spot through for that freestyle final on Saturday. And Denmark had a super start yesterday with their grade 3 rider, Leen's son Tobias, posting a huge score in the grade 3, 77.434. So they are looking at, we think, needing to score 144.549 to move onto the podium ahead of Italy at the moment. So that's an average of just over 72.2 for these last 2 riders. And it's really difficult to make that team assessment after day 1, with some teams having completed the competition, some teams with 2 or 3 riders, and other teams like Denmark with just 1 rider having competed. So these next 2 classes really is where the competition is going to unfold. She's off to a solid start here. And still just 8 years old, this horse, so a really exciting prospect for next year at those Paralympics. You can just see the horse just losing a little bit of balance through that extended trot, just getting that balance, just dropping to the forehand a little bit, and Lena just shifting that weight back as she came through the corner and onto that short side. It's a real balance of how much you can ask to get those big marks and how much you can do whilst keeping the balance and that softness. And that's really about knowing your horse, knowing where you are in your stage of training, and knowing how they cope with this environment as well, how much they can relax and stay with you. Some nice steps in that free walk. Really able to allow those reins and give the horse space to take that contact down and forward cleanly up into this canter section. And as we saw yesterday, these Grand Prix B tests designed so that they get a little bit more technical, a little bit more challenging. So the introduction of this canter half pass that we didn't see in the Grand Prix A test a couple of days ago. And the tests were designed to increase in difficulty through the week so that riders and horses had that slightly easier test on the first day, just to give them confidence before moving up into this slightly more difficult test, and then again through to the freestyle, which can also be slightly more difficult as riders have a little bit more free rein with their floor plan. And those simple changes on the centre line, really testing the horse's straightness after the half pass, so really having to show good control of the body to stop the horse after that half pass, keep the horse straight on the centre line, and really straight through the simple change as well. So a very technically demanding movement in this grade 5. And that whole rein back on the centre line, not really what you would normally teach the horse to do, but again, really testing that obedience and then going forwards into that final halt. And you just saw that horse stepping slightly back in that final halt, but a really solid test for Denmark to start this grade 5 class. And this horse shows a really nice uphill picture and some lovely moments through that test. You can just see where the horse needs to get a little bit stronger, sometimes through the lateral work, not showing quite enough suppleness. Lean keeps him a little bit straighter through that. You'd just like to see a bit more bending around through the body, around that inside leg. But a super attitude and an exciting prospect for them.
And here it is, your result Denmark at ED at Anton from France, 69.474%.
Big pats for him. Very unique for two members of a team to be family members. So mother and son competing alongside each other. And I'm sure she'll be happy to be back on that team with Tobias for Denmark. Those scores just coming through, so 70.526. So that puts her into first place in this class provisionally. as that first rider to go, building on that individual score slightly by 0.5. So she'll have to wait to see how this class plays out to see about that qualification spot. So now we have this third rider for Ireland. Ireland, another team, unfortunately down to 3 scores after Katie had an unfortunate start in the arena. And there you can see those combined scores for Denmark. So 1 rider left to go for them, with Renee in the grade 4 later on today. But entering the arena for Ireland, we have Sarah Slattery riding the 15-year-old mare Savona. And she scored 66.385 in that individual test a couple of days ago, but this horse shows some real highlights, and they've had a couple of very nice scores. So they definitely have the ability and scope to build on that. And if she can pull out a good score for Ireland, they might be looking at one of those top spots behind the qualified teams to get a place at the Paralympics next year. They had a mixed day yesterday. Katie Riley, unfortunately, having difficulties in the arena with her horse, so having to retire. But they had a solid score from Jessica in that grade 3 and a very big score from Michael, 75.792 from Michael in the grade 1. So a good combined score at the moment. For their team. And Sarah doing a nice job here, just already making her championship debut at this Europeans. Having just done a couple of internationals together, so really putting them to the test here. But you can see this horse, when she's in the right balance, she just has this beautiful expression in front and a really nice uphill picture, and can stay very nice and soft through the frame and in that connection. It's just having to maintain that throughout the movements, but doing a nice job here. Again, just wanting to keep control of those quarters as you go into that circle. Really testing the rider's control of the horse's body through these movements. A lot of work on that centre line, so the judge at C having a very nice view of that. And you saw her just giving the mare a pat as she went into that free walk. So riding with those looped split reins. So obviously needing those loops to keep that connection and hold those reins, and very tricky for riders riding with those loop reins to allow the rein for that stretch. So many choosing to lean forward to give that free walk, and just not quite showing enough. Again, body bend through that half pass and a little bit explosive into that canter, but cleanly managing to keep a lid on that. Nicely through in that extender canter. Really wanting to show that difference, that moment of transition from collection into extension and then back again. Yeah, a little bit better this way. Nicely straight. Just saw a little bit of drifting to the right there. So that is the challenge after you've just ridden that half past the horse, sometimes anticipating and not quite keeping the straightness, but cleanly through the simple change. Boldly into that extension again. And just stepping back into the hole and not quite establishing that immobility before the rein back. Really want to see that established halt, but maybe feeling the horse is a little bit on her toes and not, yeah, a little bit reluctant to halt there, so she might have just felt that and gone with it sometimes. You have to ride what you have underneath you, so the mare looking a bit on her toes, but a really nice job by this combination. There's definitely a lot more to come from them, and a lot of quality with the horse, just needing to iron out a few little details. And you can just see there a lot of scope available to them as a combination and as a partnership. Just some tiny details needing to iron out for them to pick up those higher marks. But very exciting for the future. And the horse lovely and willing with a super attitude. So a lot more to come from them, I'm sure. And another solid test for Ireland to complete their team. So we'll just wait for those scores to come through, and then we'll have our final team score for Ireland as well. And another lovely sunny day for spectators. And there we have it, 65.789 for that final score for Ireland. That final halt, just dropping that average down from what we saw on the screen. So 210.214, the final score for Ireland. So they go into the lead at the moment, ahead of Spain, the other team that had all three scores already from yesterday's competition. So that leaves them outside the podium from those teams who already have scores from three riders. So Germany and Italy. But if they can stay up there behind those qualified teams, they might be in with a shot of that qualification spot through to Paris. But there are still a lot of teams to come forward. So we have our next rider in this first group of 9, representing France. So France already having a spot as a team at the Paralympics next year as the host nation, but I've had a super championship so far, and I'm sure would love to finish high in the final rankings as they work towards next year. So representing France, Elisa says, riding the 13-year-old gelding Stallone de Hus. So entering the arena now for France, Elisa says. She finished in 10th place in the individual on 70.128, and it was very close between 10th and that top 8. So she will also be working for a place in that final, and a really unfortunate loss of balance. A super start, but a very unfortunate loss of balance in that first extension, really going for it and having some super strides at the start and the end, but just that little bit too much for the horse to maintain that. But very quickly back and into the rhythm, and again not quite showing enough bend in that half pass, but nicely through the circle, nicely through that shoulder in. So you want to see the horse's legs on 3 tracks in that shoulder in, as that right forelimb lines up with that left hind for that correct degree of angle. Cleanly through that section. This horse shows a very nice attitude in the arena, really willing, a really soft, easy picture. Yeah, not always showing enough suppleness laterally, so through the body, and that's highlighted through the lateral work with the half pass and bending around the body in those pirouettes, but again, keep stepping, and some lovely strides here. Just stay up in the balance. Just want to see a little bit more sitting and engaging from those hind legs to keep that uphill balance and to keep that expression moving upwards rather than too much on the forehand, but kept a much better balance through that extended trot. And keeping that rhythm through this trot work. Again, could see a little bit more suppleness and bend through the body for those higher marks, but showing really consistent trot work through here. Some nice stretch with that head and neck in this free walk, wanting to see that clear 4-beat rhythm. And this horse doesn't have naturally the best walk, but able to show some good stretch and good steps. And you just saw that little bit of mouth opening going into that canter. And nicely up into the canter after that simple change. Really want to see some good sitting in preparation so the horse can step forwards and up in that walk, not forwards and down. So really about your timing and preparation on that simple change, which when you're trying to already keep the straightness, there's a lot to manage. Better bending to this right in this right half pass. Nicely straight. Yeah, nicely through that simple change. A little bit better preparation there. And really boldly riding. You could just see that the rider's body weight really shifting and the shoulders coming forward as she moved into that extension. Really rode using her seat. Just want to see the horse Showing clearer strides in that rein back, just dragging a little bit, but very obedient, and a super final halt for them. A big sigh of relief, I think that was. And a super job, another very consistent test from them. And I think building on their score from the individual, which will really help them as a team and really help them from an individual perspective. You can just see there's some really nice quality work coming through from this combination. And still more to come from them. But a really super job here at this European Championships, and they'll just have to see how the rest of the class plays out for their individual place in the final. But they've done a very good job of putting themselves right up there. Those scores just coming through for you now. So 70.369 puts her into second place at the moment. And similar, just 0.2% increase from her individual. And that's the final score for France. So 213.662. At the moment, so France with their fourth rider will come later in the grade 4. So 3 scores for France at the moment. But 3 scores all over 70. And this next rider into the arena for Finland. So Finland competing as an individual. They don't have a team here. And this rider finished in 15th place in the individual on a score of 67.487. And riding the 8-year-old gelding Laxton for you, entering the arena now, representing Finland, Jonna Aaltonen. And really, really nice for that this format of competition allows these riders to go into the arena twice and compete twice, even if they're riding as individuals and not competing in the team. It just gives them 2 opportunities in the arena. If something goes wrong on the first day, or if they're not quite able to qualify for that second day, they just have that second ride and second opportunity. And you can just see there, really nice start for this rider, but struggling with that half pass, just not able to get control of the quarters and control of the body, so riding not able to show that crossing and that half pass. So that will be quite expensive, but better through the circle and a little bit better through the shoulder in, and nicely through that pirouette. And this horse has a lot of scope through the trot, but sometimes that can then be difficult to gain control through that lateral work. And you can see the horse really highlights the movements on these short lines and straighter sides. And you can really open the horse out on these extensions. Just not quite showing that commitment in that extended trot. You could just see the horse gets a little bit long and doesn't want to always push as much as the rider is asking, but much better through this right half pass, able to gain control of the body a lot better. Just losing the horse out through that left shoulder as she came round that circle, but managing to correct that very quickly. And this horse has a lot of elasticity in its movement. Still just a young horse, so when you get that little bit better suppleness through the body and laterally, and then you can get that little bit of sitting and bring the weight back a bit, she should be able to show some really high quality movements for those higher marks. Just at times that balance going and that connection going a little bit, and then this test really makes it difficult for you to show that, for her to show that off. This left half pass definitely a little bit more difficult than the right in trot and canter, but much better than that trot half pass to the left. So let's see if the right one is better again in canter. Boldly through into that extension. Oh, a little bit too much. The horse just getting a bit exuberant, doing a very nice job of just sitting quietly and sitting to that, and then bringing the horse back. Yeah, and again, nicer in this right half pass in canter. So able to keep maybe a better rhythm and balance in this canter than in the trot for those half passes. A nice extension. I think the horse got that out of his system in that first extension. And a nice pat, a little bit of resistance in that rein back, but just patting the horse. Obviously a relatively new movement for him. So just patting him and rewarding him for that response. And another consistent test, so a harder test from a couple of days ago, but still really sitting on a similar score, so showing a slightly better way of going to pick up those marks in those movements that she could. And again, another young horse showing a lot of ability and a lot of potential, and I think this horse is just going to get better and better. Super attitude in the arena. Really trying, just needs to get that little bit more supple and a little bit stronger to be able to show off the horse's quality through these more difficult movements. But a really nice temperament and a lovely attitude and some basic quality paces already there. So a lot more to see from this horse, I think, for Finland. And great that they did get that second ride in the arena, just to build on that experience for the horse and the rider. And those scores just coming through for you now. So 66.868. So going into third place at this point. So probably will be a bit of a challenge to sit in that top 8 to qualify through for the freestyle, but two very consistent tests for them and for Finland on that lovely young gelding. But back to the team competition, and we have the first of 2 Belgian riders going in this first group of grade 5 riders. Their final 4th rider will ride in the grade 4 later on today. But we just have 1 score for Belgium at the moment, so at the end of this first group we will have a better idea of where Belgium are sitting as a team and what their 4th rider Manon will have to do in the grade 4 later on today. And they had a nice start from Barbara in the grade 3 yesterday. She scored 71.267. And if Kevin can put a solid score forward for Belgium, that would be very helpful if he could go a little bit higher than Barbara. They will hope for a big score from Michelle later in the group. And again, Manon can put a nice score forward too. She scored 70, just under 74 yesterday. And Michelle put forward a mid 76 in the individual. So we'll see how that plays out. Manon there watching on. But next into the arena for Belgium, riding the 14-year-old gelding Eros van Ons Heems, is Kevin Van Ham. And Kevin finished in 8th place in the individual on a score of 71.231. So if he can do something similar, if not higher, that should secure him a spot in the individual final on Saturday and would help Belgium to really start building on that team score. And a super start so far. This horse gives a really nice uphill picture and can show really consistent trot work. Just not always showing, again, that lateral suppleness and that bend in the half pass could be a little bit better for those high marks, but keeping this really nice consistent rhythm through this trot section. And if he can keep him in this nice uphill balance and consistent in the frame, really super into that walk transition. The horse really opening out as he went into the walk and staying in a super self-carriage, so nicely through that walk section. You just saw he just allowed the rein as he stepped into the walk, and the horse stepped up and forward, showing that really nice self-carriage and balance. And that horse just anticipating an extension there, so Kevin having to bring him back and say no, wait. And then you saw that little bit of disruption where the horse overreacted going into that walk transition, but cleanly through the pirouette. Just wanting to see a little bit of softness. Just losing the rhythm a little bit. You just saw that slight bit of resistance coming through as he started the extension. And you can see him there just letting the horse out in the frame a bit so you get that nice outline on that short side. The judges wanting to see that nice open neck and open frame. So really using that short side to try and show that off. And again, nicely into this walk, the horse really taking the head and neck out, showing some super strides in that collected walk. And just leaning forwards and allowing that space for the head and neck. For that free walk. And you just saw him just adjusting those loops with that left hand. So able to lean forward a little bit and move those loops to give a bit of extra space. And these half passes just a little bit straight in the body through the trot and the canter ones, but keeping good straightness on that centre line after, nice rhythm through them, and he got a clean, simple change. So really sometimes having to make a bit of a compromise and not asking too much and maybe sacrificing the straightness afterwards. A little bit better this way. But could still have a bit more, but again, really super straightness following that. So the riders having to make decisions about where to compromise and where to ask a bit more so that you don't sacrifice the movements afterwards. And some super steps in that extension. You saw the horse not just lengthening the stride, but lengthening the frame as well. Keeping a good rhythm through this work, and a super halt. Yeah, showing really good immobility before he asked for that rein back. Could have slightly clearer steps in the rein back, so you just saw a little bit of dragging in that steps, and the horse really coming underneath him behind for that final halt, but into a good final halt for Kevin. So another consistent test, and it was very close from 8th to 11th in the individual. So he'll have to wait until the end of the class to see how this grade 5 pans out and to see how those other riders score for those top 8, sitting on just over 70 going into that, but a really nice final halt should hopefully pick that average up a little bit. Just a little bit of stepping across in that walk pirouette, but kept the activity nicely. So not all the judges will be able to see those small details from the angle they're at. So those scores just coming through for you now. I think it will be a plus 71, a plus 70 score. Yeah, 70.632%. So going into first place at this point as that 5th rider to go. So a solid score for him and a solid score for Belgium. So currently down as that drop score, and they will hope for higher scores from Michelle and Manon. And we'll see how that pans out. Michelle will go in just a few riders' time in this first group as the last rider in this first group of riders, and Manon will go later in that grade 4. So we'll have to wait until the end of that grade 4 class to see what she puts forward. But next into the arena, and another interesting one from a team perspective. So it will be the final score for Italy. So Italy already with 3 super scores coming forward. Entering the arena, Federica Cilioni, riding this 17-year-old mare Burberry. She finished in 13th place on 68.692, but has scored over 70 and had a couple of mistakes to bring that score down a little bit in that individual, and off to a super start. So Italy's drop score at the moment is 71.5. So if she can score above that, she will take Italy's final score that little bit higher, already on 221.983 from their 3 scores that have already gone. This is going to be a big maths day, I think, for me, as we start adding up the final riders. But start off to a super start. This horse just has a beautiful way of going through this trot work, a really nice combination. She sits so quietly, very petite rider, very petite horse, and she has a very elegant way of going, a nice uphill tendency, super in the outline and really nice in the bridle, and this really elegant and expressive trot. So when they can do a clean test, they can score really nicely. Just a little bit of stepping across with that inside hind leg through those warp pirouettes. Just losing a bit of that positioning and control of the quarters, which brought her down in that first pirouette as well. Nicely through that trot extension, and you can see on this short side this lovely outline and rhythm in the trot, and some nice positioning through that half pass, really keeping the rhythm. Nicely through that circle and shoulder in. Just patting her as she goes into the walk. Really want to keep her settled through this so that she can show this walk off. Again, leaning forwards to allow the rein so she doesn't have to disturb that connection, and she can do this pickup really nicely as she prepares for the canter. So could show a little bit clearer definition there, but very careful The horse shows better steps when she has a bit of space and is a bit freer. So really cleverly keeping that horse a little bit more open through that collected walk to keep the rhythm a bit better. And again, just wanting a little bit better suppleness and positioning through that canter half pass. And a bit more preparation into the simple change, just so you get that really nice sitting and you can ride that open stride, first stride into that walk. Yeah, nicer this way. Keep the straightness, really nice control as she went onto the centre line. You can see the horse, that's a problem. You want to use that right leg to control the straightness, but then if the horses know the changes, they start anticipating the change. But she rode that really nicely, really managed that. You could see the horse anticipating a little bit, but cleanly through that good preparation and cleanly through that simple change as well. And this, I just saw that little bit of anticipation and she was quick to catch her again. This looks like a cleaner test than the individual, which is exactly what she will have been wanting. Just stepping back in that final halt, which was a pity, but a much cleaner test for her and a good test for Italy. And a super job from this partnership. You can have a little scratch now, Burberry, your job is done. That's such a lovely mare, very experienced. This horse was competed in grade 3 with a rider for the Netherlands, but has since formed a super partnership and a very nice horse for Italy and for Federica in this grade 5. Again, you can just see that positioning to the left not quite as good as their one to the right, but some really nice work shown through that test. No big mistakes today, so that score should sit a little bit higher, and big smiles for her. I think she was pleased with that. And that score just coming through now, so 71.210. So a very nice score for her. And she'll have to wait to see if she can qualify through. But here's the final score for Italy. So stays on 221.983 from those first 3 riders. Very close with Carola and Federica. But a very strong score for Italy as they complete. And they go into the lead from those completed team scores. But Germany already ahead of that with their scores from the 3 riders. One of them will come up as a drop score at the moment on the system, so won't be counted, but they already have a score of 226.833, and they do have the potential to build on that with their 4th rider, who will come after this next rider, Regine Mispelkamp. She'll be the 8th rider in this first group. And after that, we'll have that definite final score for Germany. And they really have set the bar high already in this team competition. And this next rider into the arena, representing Norway. And Norway have had one rider compete already, and Catherine Love rode in that grade 2 class yesterday, scored a 72.667. So the second rider, they have 2 more riders to come forward in the grade 4, so their team score will start to unfold as well. So entering the arena for Norway, Christina Markusson, riding the 7-year-old gelding, Azoro Horis. So this rider, the second rider for Norway. She finished in 17th place in the individual on 66.795. But this young horse, very exciting, and I think they had a few mistakes, so able to build on that. Yeah, riding, again, choosing to ride that half pass a little bit straighter through the body, but looking like it was the right decision to keep the horse's balance and maintain that through the movement. You can see there's a lot of movement with this horse, a lot of ability, and just when they're quite scopy and not quite strong enough and established through the movements, you want to try and keep them sometimes a little bit straighter just to maintain that balance. So really doing a good job of keeping this, maintaining this through the trot work. And you can see the horse just wanting to tip a little bit on the forehand at times, and she's just doing constant little adjustments of shifting that weight back, really protecting that energy from side to side. Much better positioning this way, so the horse finding it a little bit easier to the right. And again, just making those little adjustments, just watching that energy doesn't fall through that left shoulder, so the shoulder end being the horse not showing it through the neck bend, showing it through the body and the positioning. Sometimes the rider's using the bend and then the energy falls out through that shoulder, but did a good job of maintaining that. And a little bit cautious through this collected walk, but keeping that rhythm. Showing a nice pitch up into this canter. The horse getting a little bit, just a little bit of resistance and tension through that corner, but she did a really nice job of keeping a lid on that, keeping the position. The positioning actually better through there to the left than we saw in the trot. Sometimes the horses are more comfortable in their balance in the canter, and then you're able to ask a bit more of that bend and show that off a little bit better. And again, really nice setting that up. You just saw as she came through the corner, she used the corner to get that horse bending around her inside leg. Again, just a little bit more sitting needed for that preparation into the simple change. You just saw that moment of almost an overreaction where the horse had to come back and just lost the balance onto that forehand, and then you get that slight hesitation going into the walk, and you have to then almost override and overcorrect it rather than that fluid stepping through. And good immobility in the hold, just a bit of resistance, the horse just a bit reluctant to move backwards in that rein back. And a good final halt, and a definite improvement from the individual. The horse looking more secure, a cleaner test, even though this test has those more difficult movements than the individual. So really promising to see. And really nice with this young horse showing a super attitude in this arena. Really exciting for them as a combination and for the future. Just some lovely moments. The horse just showed so willing, really listening, and a lot more to come from them. And big smiles. She is very happy with that ride.
And here it is, Norway second team result at 68.395%.
And that score just coming through now. Looking very warm as it gets busier for those spectators coming through. So 67.342, and she goes into 5th place at this point. So it is an improvement from the individual. So she'll be really pleased for that. And that second score for Norway, so coming up as the current drop score. And those two riders will come forward in the grade 4 class later on today. But these next two riders are going to be very influential from a team perspective. And next in, this final rider for Germany. And it looks like she has her game face on, the individual bronze medalist from 2 days ago. Germany off to an outstanding start in this team competition. They are so far having a great week at this Europeans. So entering the arena now for Germany, Regine Mispelkamp. She comes round on this 11-year-old gelding, Highlander's Delight. And Germany currently sitting on a score of 226.833. Their lowest score at the moment is 73.933. And Regine scored 74.205 in the individual to win that bronze medal. So if she can produce something similar, that would just take their score up a little bit and really set the challenge for the Netherlands. So the Netherlands coming in as favourites following their win at the World Championships last year, and they've so far had some super scores in the individual. But Germany have really set the bar high. Their current average is 75.611. So that's what the Netherlands will need to do at the moment, unless Regine can raise the bar, which she currently is. And the Netherlands, with one rider already competing in the grade 3, but they will be looking at Frank in this grade 5 and their 2 grade 4 riders to be their big hitters. So they already need to score an average of over 75.6, which they can do, but I don't think they will have been expecting to have to work quite so hard. To go ahead in this team competition. And this horse, they've had some really super results. And this horse, so powerful, so expressive. And if they can do, I was going to say, if they can do a clean test, they can pull those scores out, but just that little blip in the rhythm across that extension, but very quickly back. And very quickly back into this trot rhythm. Again, could show a little bit more suppleness than that half pass, but this trot showing superb power and really nice expression, really good in the frame today. You just get those tiny moments of resistance in the bridle, but she's doing a very good job of showing a super picture in between. And those really are very minimal at the moment. Some nice stretch through that free walk. A little bit of disruption in the rhythm, tiny bit of resistance coming back, but cleanly into the canter. Just need to keep that balance back and that frame up to show off this canter. Yeah, super straight and really nice into that simple change. You saw her set the horse back and then going through into the walk, she could really allow the walk forwards to show off those walk strides. Boldly into this extension. Just catching those quarters as she came off the wall. Again, super straight, nicely into that simple change. Bold extension again. This is going to be very close. She can't afford a mistake on this final centre line. Just not quite stepping through behind, but obediently backwards and nicely up. Could do with a very good final halt And she got that. And a super finish. A very good test for Germany. And she's pretty much secured her spot, I would think, with that score and her results from the first day in that freestyle final. But has that made a difference to the German team score? 73.933 was their current lowest score. But some real highlights. You just see that slight mouth opening in that extension. The horse occasionally a little bit resistant in the rain, but pretty good today. And just minimal moments where she managed to very quickly settle him back. Again, a very experienced rider. And that score just coming through now. So 74.079, she goes into the lead and increases Germany's score just 0.1% higher. So it's now 226.979. So it has increased that score, that drop score, 73.933. What a phenomenal result for the German team. So consistent across all four riders and in front of a home crowd. They really are delivering this championship. They are having a great week, and now all they need to do is sit back and watch what everyone else can do to respond. And just one rider left in this first group of riders. This team competition playing out right from the start. We weren't prepared for this level of stress before 9 o'clock. So this next rider into the arena. The third score for Belgium. And one of Belgium's hopefuls for that big score. She scored 76.308 in the individual for that gold medal. So they could do with something very similar, if not higher. Already a score of 71.267 from Barbara Minetti yesterday. And Kevin Van Ham has just ridden a few riders ago. So entering the arena for Belgium, Michelle George riding the 13-year-old mare, Best of 8. And Michelle, super experienced, very established combination with this horse. And if she can do a clean test, she's pretty much secured herself a spot in that final to ride for a second individual medal, but she will be wanting to put something strong forward for that Belgian team. Just getting a little bit on the forehand as she came around the corner into that half pass, but really nice positioning. really caught her and shifted that weight back very quickly. This mare is just pricked, waiting for that next command. Again, you can just see Michelle just going into that walk, the horse getting a little bit on the forehand just through the transition. Michelle just saying, stay up, stay with your weight back. Constant conversation with the horses. Again, a little bit better into that walk. Almost stepping back, but not quite. She was quick to catch that, kept that activity. And just that little bit of resistance. You just saw she lost the quarters coming out and knocking the boards through that corner. Keep the rhythm, keep that balance. Cleanly through that extension. Again, nicely into this right half pass. Really super positioning coming around the corner. And really nice through that shoulder, and you just see the super positioning, not just using the neck bend as we've seen some of the other horses doing. And a really nice stretch, just allowing that head and neck forward, and the horse really taking that. Just a little bit of mouth, that mouth just opening a bit as we went round the short side. This horse can give a really elegant picture, but sometimes just gets a bit on that forehand, and you just get that little bit of resistance in the mouth. And you can see Michelle just working to keep the horse back on the hind legs and up and in self-carriage, which is where she really shows off her quality. Again, nicely into that half pass. Just see her setting her back as she reaches the centre line and prepares for this simple change. Could have been a little bit more fluent, but cleanly through that. Very nice straightness. Just gets a little bit on the reins sometimes, having to work a little bit harder than she would probably like to, but able to really extend through that extended canter and open out in the body. Again, just that little bit. You just saw where the horse was a bit on the forehand through the rein back. You just then, she had to launch forward a little bit to get her in front of her. But a solid test for Belgium. And some big scores coming through. Some quality work to pull in those marks in between that little bit of tension coming through, and that tiny those few moments of resistance. This mare has such ability and scope to pick up those marks, and still even more Still even scope for even higher marks. When you see those little mistakes coming through and then what she's scoring even with those, there's still scope for that mark to be even higher. A very elastic and loose moving mare. And really has a lot of ability. And that score coming through just now. And 76.132. So very similar to her individual score and goes straight to the top of the lead. So she's through to that individual freestyle final. But here is the score for Belgium. So those three scores. So 147.390 with currently Kevin's score as a drop score. So that puts them on currently just over 217 with Kevin's score, but they would be hoping for a nice 74 from Manon. And there's the current standings for this grade 5. Michelle sitting out in front, Regine for Germany in second, and Federica Sicilioni in third. So we're looking at the top 8 combined from the individual to decide who will go through for the freestyle final. But we have another group of riders still to come, 17 in this grade 5. So we now see that current standings for the team. So Germany have completed, Italy have completed, and Ireland have completed, as have Spain. Denmark have 2 scores, Belgium, France have 2 scores, and Great Britain and Norway currently not calculating that second score, just that one score showing up. So we'll have a short break now and be back at 10:45 for the second group of that grade 5. And welcome back to this second group in this Grade 5 team competition. We have already had the first 9 riders coming forwards, and we have 17 in total. Denmark's Nicole Johnson having to withdraw after the individual, so down to 17 now. And this Grand Prix B, the second qualifier for individuals to go through to that freestyle final on Saturday. But also the second day of this team competition. And we will have a number of team riders coming forwards in this next group, but first of all, this first rider in after the break, representing Hungary. So these riders all riding for that second qualifier to try and qualify in that top 8 through to the freestyle on Saturday. And this rider finished in 9th in the individual a couple of days ago, so those scores will be combined to decide that top 8. So all to play for. And just coming into the arena now, representing Hungary, Ildiko Foniodi, riding the 17-year-old stallion Bo Jengel. And they got off to a superstar in the individual, so 70.461 was their score. And it was very close between 8th and 11th. So really looking to build on that and produce another consistent test to try and get a spot in that final. Showing some nice trot work at the start, but not quite showing that bend through the half pass. Better positioning through that shoulder in. And a slight mistake at the beginning, just dropping that average score down for them. Nicely through that warp pirouette, really nice positioning. This horse has a very nice uphill ability. Just needs to really keep that weight back and nicely through that pirouette. That weight back and that engagement on the hind legs, but very good in the neck. And usually shows that nice consistent contact. Can sometimes just get a little bit too much movement with the mouth. You just see at times not quite accepting the bit, but looking quite settled today. Choosing to ride in that snaffle bridle. The riders having the options to ride in a snaffle or double, and much nicer to the right here. Nicely through into that right trot circle. Again, just needing to catch those quarters as they come round, make sure they don't swing out. You just saw that little loss of balance through there, but keeping that nice rhythm for most of that trot section. and really building on that average score. Super steps in this walk. That horse over tracking with the hind legs really nicely and stretching that rein out. Able to just allow the rein. Just a little bit of resistance as she took that contact back, but very nicely managed. And staying up in the frame into the canter. And better positioning to the left here in that canter half pass. So still a little bit straighter. Be interesting to see if the right one is better in the canter as well. Straight on that centre line, just a little bit losing the flow through that simple change. Just needing to set him back a bit more in preparation to keep him in front and keeping him in front of her through that transition. So you get that nice flow and you don't have to overcorrect the horse. Yeah, it's super to the right. Almost losing the positioning towards the end, but very quickly catching and better through that simple change. Really nicely presented there. And really boldly through into that extension. Just want to keep a little bit more uphill and a bit more through, but for those higher marks, but you just saw that little bit of resistance just coming back into the hole. Those downwards transitions, just needing the horse a bit more on your seat so that you don't get that little bit of resistance when you make a downwards transition. And not quite square, but another solid test for Hungary. And a super horse, a really lovely attitude. A stallion, but staying so focused on his rider. Not being distracted by the outside. And a very nice picture, a lot more marks in there for this combination. So a good job by this first rider into the arena. And those scores coming through for you shortly. So 8 riders coming forward in this second group of grade 5 riders. And there we go, 69.5, so going into 7th place at this point. And again, just a little bit lower than her score in the individual, but again, this test increasing in difficulty and more technical for the horse and rider with the introduction of those canter half passes. So doing a very good job there. But this next rider into the arena will be the first of the 2 riders for Great Britain. Nina Venables there, one of the team coaches, just giving those last bits of advice to Charlotte as she goes through. And Charlotte making her championship debut here. She was reserved for Tokyo, reserved for the World Championships last year as well on 2 different horses. So really nice that she gets to not just pack and prepare, but she gets to go and compete this time as well. So really delighted for her, and she absolutely smashed her first test in the individual. to finish in 5th place. So we'll see how Duke is feeling today. So entering the arena for Great Britain, Charlotte Cundall, riding the 13-year-old gelding FJ Veyron, or Duke as he's known at home. And a good straight halt to start. So Britain off to a really strong start yesterday. They had scores of 74.167 and 74.417. So needing a score of 73.4 to go ahead of Italy. And they've got 2 riders in this grade 5 class, so Sophie Wells to come later on her young horse. So the bar set very high. I think Charlotte would have to produce a big PB, and Sophie on her young horse. But very exciting to be up there amongst the best with this new team of riders and young horses. And nicely through that wall pirouette. Duke, a very uphill and scopy horse. Charlotte just sometimes has to be a bit cautious with him. He can get a little bit hot and a little bit away from her, but he's been very settled and she's been able to ride very boldly at this championship so far. Now, knowing him really well, she knows when she can take a bit of a risk and ask a bit more. Nicely through that walk pirouette. And Charlotte scored 72.308 in the individual, so she'll also be riding for a spot in that freestyle final on Saturday. If she can do something similar again, that should take her through. And doing a really super job so far. Just want to see again a little bit more bend through that half pass, through the body. But this, a very big horse and a lot to keep together. Yeah, nice positioning on that shoulder four. That shoulder in movement on the centre line, so exposing. There's really nowhere to hide. And super steps. This walk is huge and he can really pull those marks in when he's relaxed, and he seems on good form today, really covering that ground with those massive steps. Cleanly up into the canter. Yeah, Charlotte just trying to keep that connection through to the outside, to keep that positioning, keep him through, and did that nicely. Very nice preparation into simple change. Really boldly into that extension. Keeping that, yeah, good preparation there. Just starting to set him up as she came through that corner. Just could do a little bit more, be a little bit more through and supple through the body there, but showing some nice positioning, straight on that centre line and really cleanly through that simple change. Go, Duke, go. And look at him, he just covers the ground. And a really nice transition back. Doing a super job here. And again, a good hold would be so straight, just leaving that left hind behind. And up into that final centre line. And Charlotte sitting at just over 73 and a really good final hold. And if she can get over 73.399, which it does look like it's on course for, Britain will move ahead of Italy and be in with a very good chance of that fight for bronze. And this is phenomenal from Charlotte at her championship debut. I can't watch the scores. And would really take the pressure off Sophie, who's going later in the class. It would be a massive personal best. She's done an incredible job. Either way, 73.368. It's a very good score. And she is over the moon. It is incredible for Great Britain. So 148.584. Currently that is looking like the drop score on that board, but 3 very good scores. And I need to do some calculations, but I think she needed above 73.399, but could you get any closer? A huge PB for Charlotte. And at the Europeans, in that pressure, absolutely phenomenal. And that, let me remind you, that is only the provisional score, so that could change. If they could find another 0.03%, it would be very helpful for the British team, but nevertheless, 3 incredible scores, and currently putting them, I think, very fractionally just behind Italy. But absolutely unbelievable. What a job by Charlotte. And Britain still with their final rider left to go. So at the end of this class, we will have their final score. And Sophie will ride in a few riders' time. But next into the arena will be representing Sweden. Sweden have had 1 rider already go in the grade 1. They have 2 in this grade 5 in the second group of riders. And their 4th rider will go in the grade 4 tomorrow. Tomorrow, later today, in this next class. But wow, this team competition is getting very, very close. Absolutely outstanding. And this next rider finished 4th in the individual on 72.897. Just outside the medals, so she will be wanting a spot in that freestyle final. So Charlotte, no doubt securing a spot in that final for her with that super score for the team. And this next rider will also be looking to do so. So representing Sweden, riding this 11-year-old mare, Fabulous Fideli. And just coming into the arena now is Lena Malmstrom. Just an unfortunate first halt there. The horse just stepping back, came in a really nice place and just stepping back, unfortunately. So a little bit expensive start, but back into this lovely trot. The horse just so elegant, so expressive. And you can just see there that mark just dropping down after that first centre line, which is unfortunate, but really scooping back those marks with this trot work and lovely preparation. You just saw as she came through the corner, really softening this mare, getting her through and around that inside leg so that she could ride that super positioning through the half pass and really keeping that rhythm in a nice place. Just staying really nice. That uphill expressive trot, really nice through that frame. Sometimes can get a little bit too much movement in the mouth when she's a little bit stressed, but staying in a good place today. Just that slight resistance going into the trot. You saw that little jump into that first trot movement, but just for one stride, very nicely back into that elegant trot very quickly. Just needing to keep her up in the balance. And this trot diagonal walk pirouette, the horses often anticipate a trot extension, so riders having to quickly correct that and then move into that walk transition. So sometimes you lose the flow a little bit and they get a bit on the forehand where they've been a bit too bold, but managing that really nicely and some really super steps through this trot extension. Just beautiful as a partnership when that balance and harmony and power is in the right place. This horse just so much quality, and again really doing a super job through that corner of just getting the horse bending around her inside leg and softening her. Nicely through this trot section, just wanting to protect that left shoulder a little bit so she doesn't fall through it, but nicely through that trot work. And it was a pity about that first hole because this first section, really nice quality, and having to really build those marks back up from that first hole. Showing some good stretch. Just the horse dropping a little bit too low at times. Just want to see her take the rein out and forwards a bit more, just for those really high marks. The horse just getting a little bit low in front into this canter work. Just not quite getting as good positioning and bend as we had in the trot, but still very cleanly through it. Very willing. You can just see that a little bit more mouthing going on in the rein, just not quite as settled in the canter work at times. You want a little bit of movement, but not the opening of the mouth. It's just very minor. There we go. Just that, when she asked her to come back, you just saw that little bit of resistance, and you can see that here through that turn. Not quite as settled as in the trot. The horse just a little bit on her toes. A bit too much in the canter. Sometimes that canter work can set them off a bit more than the trot does. They're able to keep a bit of a lid on it through the trot work, but sometimes this canter a bit too exciting, but cleanly through the simple change. Nice and bold in the extension. Just keep the balance back and up. Just, you saw her as she just came to the end, did a good job, did a little half halt. Said stay up, stay on the hind legs. Just stepping back a stride, but very square. And you just get, when the weight is a bit on the front, you get that little bit of dragging in the steps. And a super final halt to go. A very nice test by them, and did really well, really picked those marks up. Some of the trot work was very, very nice to watch, and just those little bit of tension in the canter, just bringing those marks back down a tiny bit, but still super quality work. A really nice partnership, and they should be good to go for that individual final on Saturday. They were 4th in the individual. And she looks very, very happy with that. And a super test for Sweden, so a second rider to come later in this class. And the 4th rider will go in the grade 4s later on today. And just one qualifying spot up for grabs. So that score 71.868 puts her into 4th place at this point. So should be fine to go through for that freestyle. And that second score for Sweden. So still Lotta to come later in this class, and Louise will ride later on in the grade 4. And this next rider representing Switzerland, and things are going to really heat up in a couple of riders' time when we have the rider from the Netherlands coming forward and our final British rider. But back to the individual competition. Representing Switzerland, Nicole Geiger, riding the 18-year-old gelding Amigo. And Nicole finished in 16th place in the individual on 67.077. She's had a good start to this test. And this grade 5 test, again, like the others, this Grand Prix B test increased in difficulty and is a little bit more technical. So some horses coming in and benefiting from the slightly harder work and helping to keep their focus, and benefiting from having been in the arena already once this week, and others coming in and just finding the harder movements a little bit more challenging, so not quite able to build on their score from the individual. So it's really interesting to see which combinations are able to build on their performances from the start of the week, and which horses just struggle a little bit with the extra demands. This test so exposing of straightness, suppleness. There's really a lot of work on the centre line. I'm not able to use that track to hide anything. And those canter half passes also that added challenge for horses and riders. So it's really nice that we have this format that uses both tests to qualify through for the final. So those riders not competing in a team get a second chance in the arena whether they've qualified or not. But also if you have a rider and horse that has a difficult first day, they have that chance to build on it and come back. They're just not quite showing as much suppleness and bend on these half passes, but really keeping a nice rhythm and some nice harmony through this trot section. Just want to see the horse able to bend around the rider's leg so that they can put that half pass positioning into place. Sometimes a little bit straight through those half passes. Showing some nice stretch here. The venue getting, again, quite busy with that Grand Prix special going on in the arena just next to this Paradressage arena. And so great to see so many spectators out there and people swapping over and crossing from dressage to Paradressage. Hopefully we can attract a new audience and gain some new interest as they come over and see these horses and riders competing. And we saw some better bend through that canter half pass. Really smoothly through the simple change. Just patting the horse on that short side, trying to settle him. Yeah, nicely into that half pass. Just could be a little bit more through, but better positioning than we saw in the trot. Just see that slight swing in the connection where the horse isn't able to truly give in that body bend, but very cleanly up into this canter work through that simple change and really boldly riding that extension. Nicely showing a difference. Could see a little bit more collection in this canter, but this horse staying in a very nice rhythm, very willing and obedient. Super halt, really showing that immobility before those steps, just dragging those steps a little bit for those really high marks. And ridden nicely forward into that halt, not square behind, but super mobility and a very nice willing horse.
Amigo di kolega auspicious.
And a good job from Nicole with this horse. Some really nice moments, a really nice harmonious partnership. Just wanting to see that little bit more suppleness through the lateral work, but really obedient horse. And very consistent following their performance in the individual, possibly even building on that a little bit, which is what we want to do as riders, just build on each ride and hopefully come up better, more relaxed, ready for the next time, giving them a good experience in the arena. We can just see that next rider about to come through. So Frank obviously choosing to stay in that indoor arena to warm up, but that score for Nicole, 67.948, so she goes into 10th place in this class, so just missing out on that qualification through to the freestyle, but this huge grade 5 class, 17 riders, so very, very competitive and fantastic. She's had 2 opportunities in that arena to perform and build on those performances. But we now go back to this team competition, and Netherlands, with one rider competing yesterday in the grade 3, Lotte scored 71.767, but they will be coming in as favourites. They will be going for gold, reigning European champions. Just missed out on that Paralympic champion title in Tokyo that Great Britain pipped them for, but world champions last year, and they have the ability to produce 3 very good scores with these 3 riders still to come. So next into the arena, representing the Netherlands, Frank Hosma riding the 18-year-old gelding Alphaville NOP. Frank scored 76% in the individual to take that silver medal. And the next 2 riders coming forward in the grade 4, the gold and silver medalists, both on over 75. But Germany have really set the bar high for them. They need an average of 75.659 across those 3 riders to go into that gold medal position. And Frank starting out very strong. They had scores of 77 and 75 in the grade 4 individual competition and a 76 for Frank. So if he can do something around that, that would be the start they would like. But he can't really afford to make any mistakes here. They came in as the favourites. I think they probably thought they wouldn't have expected to have to produce such high scores. Germany really laying down some big scores to put them in that prime position at the moment. A little bit cautious through there, but cleanly through this first section. Just that slight loss of balance and resistance through the corner, but very minor. And a nicely uphill and then a good balance through that extension. This horse isn't the biggest moving horse, but very consistent in the rhythm and stays in a good frame and a nice open neck to get those marks, and super positioning into that half pass and through that half pass. Really nice control of the horse's body through those movements. And Frank just letting the rein out as he goes into that walk to encourage that horse to relax and stay good in that walk rhythm. Just giving him a little bit of extra length in the neck before this free walk. Showing some good steps there, some nice stretch. Just want to see a little bit more softness as he collected. You just saw that little bit of resistance just before going into canter, but still very clean. A sea of orange stood behind watching. And cleanly through that simple change. Just want to keep the jump in this canter. Keep that 3-beat rhythm. Really bold in these extensions. This combination so established. Really able to take these risks and ride for those higher marks. Super through that corner and into that half pass, really setting the horse up. Just losing a bit of positioning towards the end. The quarter's just trailing slightly. But very straight, very good through that simple change. Just keeps checking him up. Just thought could have made a slightly clearer transition back to that collected canter. Really want to see the horse just lowering that high leg, that croup as he collects, but cleanly through the canter section onto this final centre line and looking like, oh, just a bit abrupt into that final hole. Not quite square, but I think good enough for that big score. And sitting on just over 76% at the moment, which is just what he needed to do. And he's very happy. A clean test, that's what he needed, and that's what he's delivered. Some real highlights through that. The horse staying in a really nice frame, very consistent in its outline, very consistent with the rhythm. Nice positioning through the half passes. And really picking those marks up. And that is what the Netherlands will have wanted from this first rider of today. Their second 2 riders will come forward in that grade 4 class. Germany already finished, so nothing more they can do. And that score for Nicole just showing up on the screen there. So that was the score for Nicole, our previous rider. We should have Frank's score in a moment. And it's going to be a good one. So there we have that score for Frank, 76.447. Goes ahead of Michelle George, so into the lead. 0.1% ahead of Michelle. I'm sure he would have wanted to do that in the individual for that individual title, but a very, very good score for that team as well. So currently looking in 9th place, but that's because other teams have completed or have 2 scores to count. That second score from Lotte showing up as a drop score, and Demi and Sanna's scores should be those other 2 counting scores for their team campaign. So not fully reflecting where they stand. They are off to a great start in their campaign for that team gold. And Frank securing that spot in the freestyle final on Saturday, where he would be thrilled to be at the top of that scoreboard like he is in this Grand Prix B test. So, 3 riders left to go in this grade 5. And we still have the grade 4 to go later in the day, but by the end of this class, we will have a final score for Great Britain. And they have one more rider to go in a couple of riders just after this next rider. And then the grade 4 class will decide that team from the Netherlands, Denmark, Belgium, as well as Poland and Sweden and Norway. So all to play for on that final class. But this next rider into the arena, the third rider for Sweden, Lotta Wallin, riding the 10-year-old grey stallion Enebro SB. And they finished in 7th place on 71.692 in the individual a couple of days ago. So they will really be hoping for a spot in that individual final for the freestyle on Saturday, but also wanting to put a good score forward for Team Sweden. And showing some nice trot work to start. Just see a little bit of resistance in the rain towards the end of that half pass, where she was just having to bring him back a little bit, just getting a bit too keen. And you see that tiny bit of mouth, bit of chomping on the bit. So just can show a little bit of tension or anxiety, but this horse stays in has a lovely way of going and can stay in a very nice frame and outline when he's just a little bit softer on that bit. Has real scope. In this movement, keeps a really nice rhythm. Has the ability to stay nicely uphill in front, as well as doing these more collected movements. And just stuck on that left hind through that pirouette. You want to see the horse keep stepping, keeping that 4-beat walk rhythm, and just unfortunately didn't pick up that left hind through there, so that'll be costly, and you're just seeing that mark drop as a result. Back up, or just almost losing the balance through the middle there, but she did a really good job of just setting him back and catching that in that extended trot. Nicely up through that short side. Just want to set up for this half pass, very nicely prepared. Just saw her getting that horse flexing around that inside leg, bending around that leg to get the body bend for the half pass and the positioning. So super job through there. Just catching that left shoulder as she came out of the circle, just wanting to pop through that, but again, very well managed. And really wanting to see that V shape between the front leg and the hind leg in the walk. So not always showing that. Better in this extension, but not this horse's highlight, but very nice relaxation. Could take the nose out and forwards a little bit, but showed a really clear, consistent step through there. A little bit of tension going into the canter, but you just saw her there just giving the rein, giving the horse space, so he didn't get stuck, and tried to relax and settle him. Just having to catch this horse as she hits the centre line, both in the trot and the canter, seems to have to give a little bit of a half halt to catch the horse, wanting to just run through away with her a little bit, but again, very quickly caught and boldly into this extension. Really nice. We like a horse with a bit of go. This horse really taking her. Just sometimes a little bit too much. Again, a little bit abrupt. There's just those downward transitions sometimes. She just has to give a bit more of a half halt than she would like. And then you get that little disturbance where the horse comes back too much and you have to overcorrect it a bit. Really nicely offering that forwardness through into the extension, and a nice transition back to collect the horse, showing a difference through that corner and rebalancing through that corner. Just keep your head up, keep your balance in self-carriage. Yeah, and you just saw that little bit of dragging in the steps where you just got a bit too much on that forehand. And a good final halt. A really super combination for Sweden. Just a few little moments of tension, just bringing that score down a little bit, which was a shame, but some really nice work, some really good preparation she was doing before the movements, which is nice to see. That positioning and setting up before she goes into a movement. You just see constantly readjusting the horse's balance to keep him in the right place. And a really willing and enthusiastic horse. So nice to see. And that score just coming through. So she was 7th in the individual, 69.842. So 10th in overall in this class today. And we'll just have to wait to see how that fits together with those scores from the individual to see if she gets into that top 8 to go through to the freestyle final. But there we have that score for Sweden, 141.710 with those 2 scores. They do have those 3 scores, but that lowest one currently looking coming up as a drop score in the calculations, and Lena will ride their 4th rider in the grade 4 later on today. But next in, we have this final rider for Great Britain, Charlotte, doing a superb job earlier in this group, but Great Britain currently sits just behind Italy, 0.03% just behind Italy, and we'd expect the Netherlands to go ahead of Italy and potentially ahead of Germany. So to stay on that podium, they need to go ahead of Italy with 73.399. Charlotte scored 73.365 with a huge PB and a fabulous test. But this pressure is on for Soph, the 4th rider to go. And this horse, just 7 years old, she's such an exciting talent that Sophie unfortunately had to withdraw her top horse Donkara from contention after he just knocked himself at one of the final selection trials, and that was such a shame because they had just posted 76% at Hartbury, and this a big ask for this 7-year-old. So next into the arena for Great Britain, Sophie Wells riding the 7-year-old mare LJT Egbajad Samoa. And a superstar. And Britain came here with 2 riders making their championship debut, Georgia and Sukara, the most experienced combination, having done 2 championships already, and Sophie having to bring forward this 7-year-old mare for her first ever championship experience. She's done 1 competition abroad this year and in her life. So a big ask, but off to a phenomenal start. And they were 6th in the individual on 71.846, but had a very unfortunate break in that first extended trot, and we're trending on around 74% behind that. So this horse is very capable, but a very big ask at just 7 years old at her first championship. And she is an unbelievable talent. She has so much power, she has a super temperament, but all she wants to do is try her best. And sometimes she tries that little bit too hard. So Sophie doing a really good job of keeping that under control. She is riding on probably gear 1 or 2 at the moment. This horse just so much to offer. Not quite ready to manage the level of power that she has, and just patting her there, just giving her confidence. And she did a really good job of giving her confidence after that mistake in the individual, and the horse really came back to her very quickly and went on to do a super test. So coming into the arena here, hopefully having learnt from that and built on that, and much better extended trot than in the individual. Really being careful to keep her balance, and a little bit of tension through that half pass. You just can see she just gets a bit too full of herself. Sophie has to be really careful. When she's so hot, she has to be so careful with her leg. She will be sitting very still. But did a really good job of managing that through the half pass, managing to soften her. I don't know if she's holding her breath or trying to take her breath through that walk section. This walk has in the past sometimes been a tricky movement for her to relax. She's just so keen and enthusiastic to work, but very nicely through that. Been really careful there, picking up the reins to keep the rhythm through the walk. Cleanly through that walk section, nicely up into this canter. And this yeah, very well settled through that half pass. She has an extraordinary canter, and sometimes she just offers a bit too much. cleanly through that simple change. But she kept her head through that half pass. Listened to Soph. And she did a really good job there. Not asking too much, but just asking enough. Just, you can see her there just giving the rein. Trying to soften her. Let her relax. Give her that chance to relax. And really nicely into this right half pass. Much more settled and through. And good preparation into that simple change. Just settle and cleanly up into that canter. Ooh, just a little bit more to go. Boldly through that extension. Just sit her back. And you can just see her there, just half halting as she came into the collector canter. This last centre line, very, very quickly catching her as she came around that turn. And a super halt for that rein back. Into this nice trot. We just need a very good final halt. But whatever happens, this has been a very good halt to finish. Big smiles from Sophie, and I don't know, it looks like that was sitting on a very good score, but that was a masterclass in sensitive riding with this hot horse. She is such a phenomenal talent, this horse, and has so much ability. You really can't ask anyone near what she is capable of yet. But that was truly exceptional. Really building on from that individual performance. The last rider of Great Britain to go, she knew what she had to do. And they really delivered in the arena. Such a young horse, but such a willing attitude. Diana, as she's known at home, looks thoroughly pleased with herself, and so she should. Now they needed 73.399 to go ahead of Italy, and by that running score, it looked like they may have just done that. Either way, they have done a phenomenal job as a team. New riders, new horses. But that score just coming through now. 74.079. They go into third place individually in this class, but more significantly, this final score, 222.663. Great Britain go into silver medal place, ahead of Italy and just behind Germany. Absolutely outstanding. So consistent across those four riders. Two riders making their championship debut and a young horse making her debut as well. Georgia and Suki delivering again the most experienced combination on that team, but incredible result for them. And this final rider in this grade 5 class, we have screens everywhere, scores everywhere. Austria's third rider to go, Valentina Strobel, riding the 13-year-old gelding Bikia Simba. And Austria, with two riders having gone already, Peppo in the grade 2 yesterday and Julia in the grade 1. They have two scores over 70, and they could be looking at trying to get that qualification spot for the Paralympics. Britain, Netherlands, Denmark, Germany, Italy and Belgium all having already qualified. So if they can finish top on the leaderboard behind those teams or amongst those teams, they could be in with that final team spot to qualify through a team for Paris. They need over 67.463 ahead of Ireland, who are currently the top of those teams, of completed teams, looking at that spot at the moment. And their final two riders, very capable of doing that. So all to play for. Valentina finished in 14th place on 68.333. But again, that group just below the qualifying spot from 8th to indeed 14th were very, very close. So if she can build on this and her performance from the individual, she would be in with a good chance. And if she can score over 67.4, Austria will go ahead of Ireland on the team competition. Oh, just an unfortunate trip in that trot extension. Just see that slight variance in the rhythm. But nice positioning into that half pass. Just want to keep that body band through. Yeah, very well done. And really riding that straight couple of strides before the circle. Going into that shoulder in. Just preparing the horse for this stretch. Allowing the rein out. Could take a little bit more forward and out with the rein, but showing some good relaxation, really looking for that clear 4-beat rhythm in the walk. Cleanly up into the canter. Good preparation for that half pass, losing the balance for just one stride, but very quickly getting that back. And you could just see her just asking, not quite getting a reaction straight away, just giving him a little check with that left leg. Say, come on, stay in front of me, stay listening. Nicely into that half pass again, really showing nice preparation, showing a little bit more consistent body bend to the right. A little abrupt into that simple change, but nicely up into the canter. Just want to keep that balance back and that uphill, that self-carriage. Again, a little bit on the forehand in that halt. The horse is not expecting to halt and rein back on that centre line. You normally teach them not to do that. But a very nice final halt, very obedient from this horse. He looks pretty happy with himself, and the supporters look pretty pleased. And some really nice elastic work from this horse. Some really good moments of preparation. Just got those slight mistakes, that little bit of irregularity in the medium trot that just brought the marks down a tiny bit. But a super job for this Austrian rider. In this Grand Prix B and team competition. So 68.079 puts them into 13th place, but that does take them ahead of Ireland in the team competition, still with one rider left to go. And they have that score for Austria, 142.742, and that's with just those two scores. And Bernd Brugger will go in the grade 4 in this next class. So that won't qualify her through for the freestyle final. But a very good result for that team. So here are those results for this individual. Frank taking that top spot for the Netherlands. Michelle George in that silver spot. And Sophie Wells just sneaking ahead in that third spot. So those riders all looking like that top 8 will go through to that freestyle final based on their combined scores from the Grand Prix A. A lot of calculations going on, but this is the current standings for the team. Germany sat out in front on 226.979, Britain in silver and Italy in bronze. But the Netherlands still have 2 riders to come forward in this next grade 4, and they are the gold and silver medals winners from the individual. So we expect to see them moving up. So that's all to play for, and we will see you at 1 o'clock for that final grade 4 class.